everyone, welcome again to Page 3 here at News 9 with me, Sakshi Singh Litoria. Without any further ado, let's go straight towards our first segment of Nostalgia Nuggets, where today we will be speaking about why was Meena Kumari known as the tragedy queen of Bollywood. Meena Kumari, a legendary figure in Hindi cinema, earned the title of Tragedy Queen of Bollywood for her remarkable portrayals of deeply emotional and sorrowful characters. Her ability to convey complex emotions left an indelible mark on Indian cinema. Over a 33-year career, she delivered unforgettable performances, yet her personal life was steeped in hardship and heartbreak. Born into poverty, Meena Kumari faced adversity from the very beginning of her life. Her father, unable to pay the doctor who delivered her, briefly left her on a Porsche before taking her home. Despite these difficult beginnings, she entered the film industry at the age of just 4. Eventually rising to become one of Bollywood's most celebrated actresses and accumulating significant wealth for it as well. During the 1950s, though, she worked with acclaimed directors, gaining widespread recognition not only in India but all over the world. However, her career had its own challenges. She once fiercely protested a director's mistreatment against her, which then led to a controversial scene where her character was struck repeatedly by the hero. As per the sources, do you know how many times? 31 times. She was struck repeatedly by the hero 31 times. Meena Kumari's personal life was equally turbulent, particularly her marriage to filmmaker Kamal Amrohi. Introduced by actor Ashok Kumar, their relationship developed despite Amrohi's existing marriage and family. The union was also strained by his controlling nature and allegations of abuse, ultimately ending in separation. The emotional toll of her personal struggles exacerbated Meena Kumari's health issues further. Struggling with alcoholism, she sought treatment in prestigious hospitals of London and Switzerland, where she was then later on diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. Tragically, on March 31st of 1972, she passed away at the age of just 38, leaving behind a legacy of extraordinary talent and profound sadness. Gone too soon, right? Very young. Meena Kumari's contributions to Indian cinema now remain cherished, and her life story also reflects the immense challenges artists often face in their pursuit of excellence. For our next segment, Popcorn Pick of the Week, we are suggesting you to watch Oklahoma City Bombing American Terror on Netflix if you are a documentary fan. On the morning of April 19, 1995, Army veteran Timothy McVeigh, once described as probably the best soldier in his unit, parked a rental truck filled with a 4,800-pound bomb outside the Alfred P. Mora Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City. At around 9 a.m., the bomb then detonated, destroying a third of the building and killing 168 people, including many children, in the daycare which was housed within. The date was no coincidence though. It marked exactly 2 years since the deadly Waco siege, which had fueled McVeigh's anti-government hatred. Using a fake identification ID made with clothing iron, McVeigh rented the truck and along with fellow Army veteran Terry Nichols, assembled the bomb from fertilizer and fuel. So the tragedy is now being revisited in two powerful documentaries. Nat Geo's Oklahoma City Bombing One Day in America is at the moment streaming on Geo Hotstar and Hulu, while Netflix's Oklahoma City Bombing American Terror is a gripping 1 hour 24-minute long feature that recounts the day through interviews with survivors, first responders and also community members who stood strong in the face of unimaginable loss. McVeigh was arrested just 90 minutes after the blast by State Trooper Charlie Hanger for driving without a license plate, unaware that the man he stopped was behind the nation's deadliest domestic terror attack. Hanger brought McVeigh to jail, where he remained due to a court backlog. Meanwhile, investigators traced a piece of the blown-up truck back to a rental agency, leading to a sketch that ultimately identified McVeigh. On April 21st, just as he was about to be released, the FBI realized who who exactly he was. McVeigh was executed using a lethal injection in the year of 2001. Nichols at the moment remains in prison for life. The documentary captures the raw emotions and resilience of those who were most affected. Dr. Spengler, a medical resident at the time, had just finished his shift and joined a friend for breakfast nearby. Hearing the blast, he rushed to the site and began triaging victims, making heartbreaking decisions, especially when children were involved in it. Rennie Moore, who worked near the building, had left her 6-month-old son Antonio at the daycare that morning. He was among those who were killed. She recalls sitting in her car outside McVeigh's prison, consumed by grief and rage, wondering how she could get to him. Years later, she surprisingly gave birth to another son on Antonio's birthday. Amy Downs, an employee at the Federal Employees Credit Union in the building, was buried under rubble but yet survived. Left alone when rescuers feared another bomb, she faced her own mortality and vowed to live differently. She went on to become a triathlete, earn her MBA, rise to CEO of the credit union, and inspire others through her story. Now, this documentary offers more than a historical account for all of us. It forces viewers to confront how one horrific act can alter countless lives. It's a reminder of human strength, how grief can lead to transformation, and that, no matter what, life must go on. Time for the entertainment wrap of the week, where we bring you the top entertainment headlines from the nation and across the globe. Celebrities across the country share their condolences for the victims of Pahalgam terrorist attack. Netflix released the much-anticipated teaser of Wednesday Season 2. Fans are speculating a collab between Maroon 5 and Lisa. A photo of Adam and a mysterious girl posted on Maroon 5's official Insta handle. Enola Holmes 3 is also here, now in production, said Netflix. Filmmaker and actor Anurag Kashyap apologized for his quote-unquote Brahmin remark in a long post made on Instagram. He wrote, and I'm going to quote him here, that lost control of language in anger. Priyanka Chopra Jonas to be honored at Gold House Gala for remarkable 25-year career. Actor Mahesh Babu gets ED notice in realty fraud case. Twilight star Kristen Stewart tied knot with long-time girlfriend in an intimate ceremony. The Academy has introduced a surprising new rule. Voters must now actually watch the nominated films before casting votes. Abir Gulal, starring Pakistani actor Fawad Khan and Vani Kapoor, faces a massive backlash on social media following the Pahalgam attack. Social media buzz with quote-unquote "won't let it release in India" comments. And for our last segment, Crispy Chats of the Week, we spoke to Soha Ali Khan. We also spoke to her about the recent attack on Saif Ali Khan. Of course, the Pataudi Cup's retirement announced by BCCI, how exactly the family reacted to it, and how exactly did she don the role of an antagonist, especially in a horror film, Chori 2. Take a look at what she has to say. So hi everyone, speaking to this episode of Page 3 on News 9 for Chori 2 is Soha Ali Khan. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Soha. Looking at
Thank you so much.
with the posters again after a long time, and that too in a very different avatar, and it's very intriguing. Tell us more about the kind of role that you will be playing in Chori 2.
I am playing the horror in a horror. So it's very exciting for me because I never really thought I would get cast in this kind of role. I've usually played girl next door, royal, good girl, sweet type characters. And here I've had an opportunity to, I think, really explore darker sides that probably do exist in my personality. I think all of us have darker sides. But this was really a chance for me to get into that, try out new expressions. And a lot of people ask me, what am I doing all these workouts in the gym for? I really didn't even realize it. The core strength that you need to have the supernatural strength that my character does is a lot. To do a horror can actually, to be a monster can actually be physically very tiring.
So did you go through some of the characters, maybe some other movies that you must have watched to sort of get yourself into that role?
No, they were actually, my director had a very clear vision. He said, हमारा जो idea है भूतों को लेके, चुड़ैलों को लेके बॉलीवुड में वो बहुत ही एक stereotypical बाल खुले, साड़ी पहन के या उल्टे पैर वाले जैसे डायन टाइप के roles है. I want to do something that is a little different. I was like, okay, what? And then he showed me some pictures, and I was like, okay, this is like really different. And he said, we'll try it, and you just trust me. So I was like, but I've literally just met you, how do I trust you? And I had seen Chori 1, and I did feel like, okay, Vishalsa has a sense of storytelling and creating an ambience and an atmosphere. And okay, let me trust him. And I trust our producer who I've worked with before. We've done Hush Hush together, Vikram, Malhotra, and myself. So I was like, okay, this is something that I think I can take a risk with and then hope for the best.
Right. And like I said in the introduction, that I'm looking at you through a poster after a very long period of time. I know for a fact that you're extremely selective with the kind of role that you want to play. You go slow with that. So, what drew you towards Chori 2? Why did you come on board with this particular project?
I mean, yes, it's true that I'm selective, but I also don't get offered a lot of like amazing roles that I would jump on. You can only say yes to what you're offered. And I felt like what I was being offered was not exciting enough for me to leave home because I really, enjoy being home. And there's some really nice people at home that I like my husband and my daughter. They're lots of fun. And, now actually they are very busy. And now I feel like, okay, maybe I need to think a little bit more about how to get good roles and the kind of roles that I would like to do. Or you see someone on screen and you're like, oh, this is something that I would like to do. Up until now, I've been very happy with the balance that I have in my life between work, whether that's writing or producing. Now I'm working on doing a podcast as well, or acting. And then you can be very busy, as I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this will relate to, in just running a house. In fact, I feel like it is more time consuming, more challenging when I'm at home. My mind is doing 50 things. When I'm at work, I'm only doing one thing. When I'm at home, I'm doing 50 million things, and I find it very difficult. So actually going to work is a stress buster. So I am selective, but as I said, I only choose from what I'm offered. And this was something that the visual appeal of my character being presented in this avatar, in this slightly monstrous look, which I feel is very impactful. I thought I would enjoy that. I would enjoy being on a hoarding looking like this. And thankfully, no regrets.
I want to ask you with regards to Chori too, because it's a horror project. Horror is a very rare genre in Indian scenario, if I could say, or if I could say, we have very less good projects in terms of the horror genre. So when you first got to know that this project will be coming out on OTT again for the second part also, even after having the first hit franchise, did you not think, and after going through the comment section, of course, on YouTube, as far as the trailer is concerned, did you not think that this would have been a better project on screen for the bigger audience?
I did think it was a better project on screen, although I do understand that with a theatrical release comes a lot of other pressures, a huge budget that gets allocated to marketing and promotion of that, distributing of that, and then the numbers that people are obsessed with on like the opening day. You need to make like 100 crores over the weekend, otherwise you're not worth talking about, etc., etc. So I feel like that is more the producer's call than my call. There must be certain reasons and a certain process that they must have gone through before making this decision, and I leave that to them. What gives me, as someone who consumes horror content and films, I do love the magic of going to the cinema, and I do understand now with technology, people really actually think before they go to the cinema. And one of the things that takes you to the cinema is horror, because it's not typically something that you might watch at home. But having said that, I do feel a that this film, which I have seen on a screen like a television screen at home, still has that impact. I would just say don't watch it on your smallest screen. If you have a phone and you have a TV, please watch it on the TV. Don't watch it on the phone, because I think the bigger screen that you have, the more impactful, and the best sound system that you have, the more impactful the film will be. And maybe, if enough people appreciate it, like it, and ask for it, we've seen films and we've seen things have a second life and come to the theaters. It all really depends on the audience. Actually, most of these decisions are made on the basis of an audience response.
Right. But there also comes a sort of a stereotype or maybe a taboo with related to the remakes. And this one is also a remake of the Marathi film, be it from the same director, of course. But I would say that this is one of the risk factors. So, what were your thoughts when you got to know that you will be working for a remake, which might not go well with the Marathi audience who might have already seen the first and the original version?
So, luckily, Chori 2 doesn't have that because Chori 2 has not been made into a Marathi film before this. Yes, Chori 1, I think Vishal wanted it to have a wider audience than the Marathi film, and he thought that if he makes this because it got such a good response, especially from women. He said, I would like to take this into a broader circle. And what has happened with Chori 2 is that he feels now, just in Hindi, he can there was no need to make the Marathi film before this. So it doesn't have that sense. It's a completely different story. It takes the characters forward, the character of Sakshi and Ishani, who is, unborn in part one, but she's her child in part two. It's their story that goes forward, but there's no original other story to compare it to for anyone.
Right. That's really interesting. And let me now divert the attention a little bit towards Soha Ali Khan. I am really curious to ask you what really are the perks of being moderately famous, Soha?
There are many. For one, I it's moderately famous is somewhere between being very famous and being unknown. I think that being unknown must also have its perks, and like every situation has its advantages and disadvantages. But of course, with being recognized comes an element um, of access, an element of privilege, an element of not having to pay for stuff. Going to restaurants and not having to pay the bill, getting bookings. People looking after you, giving you lots of presents, inviting you to fun stuff, giving you free clothes. All of that comes along with it. But there's a loss of anonymity, of course, that comes with being a name. And a lot of people, I think, feel like that's not such a big deal, to not be, to be recognized all the time can't be such a bad thing. But I think that it's only when you walk in those shoes as someone really famous, who would actually not be able to go on holiday or have moments of privacy. And privacy is very, very sacred to me. My alone time is very sacred to me. Imagine somebody constantly taking pictures of you every time you go out, dissecting you, the way you look, how many wrinkles you have, how you parent, what your child is doing, what you're wearing, when you put on weight, whether you put on too much weight when you were pregnant, whether you didn't put on, like people have views on everything, especially if you're a woman. So I feel like it is nice to be in the middle, where you have all the access, especially if you're related to super famous people. You get all the access without any of those, without the cons.
And now touching back and speaking about how you navigate the real life characters on a daily basis, because like I've already said, you're a mother, you're a sister, you're an actor, you're a businesswoman, you have written a book for yourself as well, etc., etc. There are a lot of things that you have already done. When does it actually become challenging, and how do you tackle out that pressure of being everything but yourself at the same time?
But I mean, that is a question I could ask you as well. I mean, this is, I think, what every woman really deals with, because we all wear so many hats. I feel one of the most difficult things to manage is relationships. How to be everything to everyone. Especially when you get married, you want to be the best wife, you want to be the best mother, you want to be the best daughter, you want to be the best sibling. It's not possible. You can't be everything to everyone at the same time. Which is why we feel guilty all the time. We're like, Arey, I can't be there for that, I can't be there for that, I can't be there for that. And some people put more pressure on themselves than others. Then comes the work guilt. There's not going to work is a guilt. Going to work is also a guilt, because as a modern woman, the expectation that you should be setting is that I go to work, I make my own money, I am independent, I'm ambitious. But on the flip side is that you miss out on so much at home, especially when you're a parent. You may not see those first steps. Your daughter may confide in someone else over you. It's very complicated actually. Which is why I felt like when I'm at work, especially with the kind of work that we do, I'm at peace because I know I can't be anywhere else and I need to focus. And that's when I've delegated. I've said, you need to look after Inaya. You need to, if my mother calls, you need to do this. I'll lean on my family. I'll say, Kunal, I need you to do this right now. I have a wonderful nanny, Rashmi Didi. Rashmi Didi is my lifeline. She's there for my daughter if I'm not there. So these are the people who help me. So I
Hmm.
think the important thing is to delegate.
Hmm.
Understand you can't be at all places at one time and you can't do everything. And it's okay to slip up. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to want things that other people feel, even if it's to be a parent or to be a homemaker. It's okay to want that. It's okay not to want to be a mother and say, I don't have that. I don't want that. It's okay not to want to get married. You have to identify what it is that makes you happy. And then hopefully, because it's easy to say you should be able to have the dream and work towards it. It only happens when you're surrounded by people who help you achieve that dream. You can't be the only one fighting for it. Everybody
Right.
needs support.
Absolutely. And your family has a legacy to follow, Soha. And when I speak about legacy, there was a very symbolic thing to your family, which was the Patodi Cup. And
Mm.
recently, BCCI did an announcement. So, how did the family feel when the announcement came into the picture?
I think my mother's already given a comment that she was disappointed and that she was hurt. I feel, of course, I think my response will be more emotional as a daughter, who uh, I felt that my father made an immense contribution to
Hmm.
cricket. And what I feel is that, of course, cricket as a sport will evolve
Hmm.
and the format of the game will keep changing, trophies will change, competitions will change. But why I feel like the trophy should continue is because I feel that uh, we must respect and honor the contributions made to the sport by people like my father, because I do feel his contribution as a captain was immense in terms of at a time where there was perhaps not a sense of playing for India. He brought that sense of unity and team spirit of you're not playing for Hyderabad, you're not playing for Delhi, you're playing for India. He led India to its first overseas test victory in New Zealand. And also my contribution, which is also his name is also Patodi and part of the Patodi trophy, was that he had the rare distinction of being the only person to play for England pre-independence and India post-independence. So there's a genuine connection with England. And this is a trophy that honors that competition that takes place in the summer between England and India. So it was a natural fit. So I feel to discontinue that or to retire that is disappointing. But having said that, it was something that the BCCI started in conjunction with ECB. There must have been a reason again for them to have made that decision. And I'm hoping that if they can't be convinced to continue it, that they will do something else to honor my father's contribution to the sport.
And the family again had to go through a very somber moment, Soha, a couple of months back when Saif were actually attacked. And this is not only because you are Saif Ali Khan's sister, but you are also an actress and you also used to walk through that lanes, and that too without thinking about anything. Mumbai is your city. We do spot celebrities walking down the lanes freely, not thinking about their safety. How did the things change after that?
I don't know if people know this or not, some people do, was that 10 years ago, my own house was broken into.
Yeah.
And luckily, Kunal was there.
Hmm.
And he and the would-be thief got into an altercation and they fought. And he managed to capture the thief and
Hmm.
took him to the police station. And this thief was arrested. So I feel that these things happen. It is odd for my mother to have had two of her children's homes broken into by a thief. I think it is unfortunate. I think that my brother's spoken at length about it also in interviews. We just feel that these situations can turn. And of course, in his case, it did turn violently, but it could have been worse. So, what we are left with is truly a sense of feeling grateful that he's okay and that he was not grievously injured beyond a point. I mean, he was not injured in a permanent way, and that he was able to make a full recovery, and that, he's back to work and everything he enjoys now. So, that's what we focus on.
How do you balance out the trolls if there are any? Because I don't think there would be any trolls in your life. People love to watch you, they've been loving your work. But if not about you, if you have seen other people being trolled, how do you think about online trolling? Do you think it has raised to several folds in last couple of years? Maybe after COVID, because everybody is there on phone now.
No, I think that there is. Firstly, my response, I'm not so affected by it because I feel like to write a comment anonymously to someone is not really much. Like it takes no courage to speak up when you're not putting a face to a name or nobody knows who you are. It's a one-way sort of comment, and I really think that it comes from. I mean, there seems to be like a lot of hatred out there. Like, it's not just constructive criticism of, like, these are some tips on how you could be a better actor. It's just hate. It's just negativity, and it's just people who seem to enjoy bringing people down. And that seems to exist in society. We like to bitch about people. It makes us, I don't know, feel better about our lives in some way when someone else is not doing very well. So I think we need to introspect and think about where that's coming from, if any of it is even real people and if they're not just bots. Because how can some people write so quickly? Like, I literally post a picture and in seconds, there's like 100 comments, and most of them are bizarre, comments anyway. So I think that online trolling is okay because you need to be strong enough. If you're going to enter the world of Instagram, social media, you need to be prepared. You can't be so nazuk that you can't take what's out there. Otherwise, don't be on Instagram. Like, a lot of people choose not to interact. And I would definitely advise my daughter not to be on Instagram till she's 16 because she's at an impressionable age until that age.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely, lovely chat. All the very best for Chori 2.
Thank you so much. Please
Thank
do
you,
see it. Tell us
Sakshi.
what you
Thank
think.
you.
That's all we have to pack it up on the show here at Page 3 this weekend. Do stay tuned. We'll come back next weekend with more of the news and buzz from the entertainment world. Ciao.